Welcome to the Beautiful Game Plan podcast, produced by Focus Shift Films and sponsored by Welsh sports fans. I'm your host, Daniel J. Harris. I'm a filmmaker and entrepreneur working across sport, and I'm a huge fan of sports content. This podcast is my chance to meet amazing people who are doing amazing things in the sports content space and to share their stories with you in the hope that it inspires ideas. On this episode, I have the amazing Ria Burrage-Male, a former multidiscipline athlete, former CEO of Hockey Wales and founder of KIBO. Ria, welcome to the Beautiful Game Plan podcast. Give us a brief history of your career in sport to date.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks for that intro. I suppose sport has been a fundamental part of my life. Since I was a kid, when I was in primary school or probably nursery school, I was watching cricket on a pull-in TV when all the kids were outside playing. So my dad played sport. He played cricket, played rugby, played basketball for Wales. So yeah, it's been part of my life since day dot. I didn't ever want to be a Welsh lady. I always wanted to be a rugby player, when on St. David's Day. So and I've always played it, so I was really fortunate in school, particularly kind of a secondary school. My PE teacher was, Welsh international hockey player as well. So she encouraged me, and I was a centre forward, and then she told me to go in goals, and it's kind of gone from there. Really, I got coached by an English and GB hockey goalkeeper, and then at age 14, I was playing for Wales. So it's kind of been. Yeah, everything really. And I played with the age groups. So played under 16s, played under 18s, 21s, seniors. Took a bit of a kind of gap around about when I started teaching. And obviously kind of when you're playing amateur sport, you have to pay to play. So I was teaching. I couldn't afford to play for Wales. I bought a house. And in that window, I did a bit of kickboxing. So it was Welsh Clubs champion in kickboxing, and then ended up working at Cardiff City Foundation, which is where I took football back up. We won the Welsh League for the first time as a brand new kind of club. So I think 2012, the club was reformed as Cardiff City women's football team. And we won the Welsh League and ended up going to Champions League playoffs, so which was pretty cool, which then inspired me then to kind of go back and play international hockey. So 2013, played the Champions League playoffs, and then 2014 then ended up kind of going back to hockey and going to the Commonwealth Games after probably about 7 years of not playing hockey at all. So, yeah.
You just say that all so casually. So I had to go to kickboxing, became a champion, started getting involved in football, then won the league. Like these are not ordinary things, Ria. People don't just have a go at something and become a champion and go to a Commonwealth Games. How do you do it?
How do I do it? Look, I think sport, I think it's natural, isn't it? I think you kind of either love it and you've got a natural tendency. And I just I like it. I like playing sport. I like to do well. I'm not really in it for, I either want to do it and do it well. I don't want to do it at all. I'm 100% with things, or I'm, same with coaching. So if somebody said, can you do some coaching? I'm going, well, what does it involve? Because I'm in it, So, and like I tell you, I've had this mentality where, I just like to work hard, and I'm quite resilient, and, I've managed kind of injuries and managed my kind of, how I eat and how I train and how I sleep to ensure that I can do things really well. So I don't tend to do things at 50%.
So as casually as you said, I had to go at kickboxing, became a champion. You tried kickboxing. You thought, I'm going to be good at this. I'm going to train hard. I'm going to win things. And you dedicate yourself to it. And then you become a champion. Yeah.
And my brother kickboxed for Wales. I joined his club, and I just did it because I was actually working as a door supervisor. So I was a bouncer. And I thought it'd be quite useful to have some armory behind me. So I did.
Get out, wallop.
Yeah. I must admit, communication was my biggest strength whilst working on the door. But I enjoyed it. I wanted to keep fit. I'd stopped playing hockey and, let myself go to some extent. So, and it's physical, it's aggressive sport, and that's the bit I liked about it. It was a real challenge. So.
Yeah, I suppose, it allows you to take out any of those frustrations and kind of work out some of that negative energy and find a little bit of balance.
Yeah, and I need that. I need to be able to release that energy for sure.
Fair enough. So yeah, sport has kind of clearly played an important role in your life and your philosophy on life. So
Mm.
can you talk us about some of those key life lessons you've picked up in sport and that you use every day?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me that sport teaches us is you have to win respectfully and with be humble. You have to respect your opposition, and you know I think that's a real important quality to adopt. And you have to lose with dignity as well, and I think you have to be able to pull yourself back up and accept the fact that you've underperformed or you've lost or the other team was better. And that's okay. So I think those kind of skills around, resilience and being vulnerable and being authentic and being humble and being modest and being professional are real key qualities that I think can be then translated and transferred into business. Being organized and being committed and, managing injuries and all those kind of things that are fundamental and to being successful in life. And I think the four things that really underpin sort of what I believe makes you a successful athlete and also successful in business is that wellness piece. So, I talk a lot about eat, sleep, breathe, connect, and having those um, four basic triggers, mindsets, habits, accountability statements that just keep you grounded and keep you focused and ensure you look after yourself so you can perform at optimum levels.
Yeah, I think sport, there's also a certain element of self-reflection and analysis, isn't there? Is what was I good at? What was I bad at? How do I improve? So you're always looking for those marginal gains as a sports person. And that's the same thing in business. What do we do? What do we do well? How can we improve our process? How can we improve our HR? How can we improve our marketing? You're finding all them small kind of marginal gains, adding them all up and growing and evolving.
Yeah. And there's two other things that spring to mind as you're saying that. So there's one called a wild boar moment. And when I was at hockey, we had an amazing sports science lead called Mark. And if something wasn't going right, so for example, our bus was late and we got to the pitch late, or a player got injured, or there was something that would maybe tip us off, push us out of lane a little bit. He used to say, if you were walking down the street and saw a wild boar, what would you do? You wouldn't panic, you wouldn't run, you would just keep walking, you would just remain focused, and you would just deal with the fact you've just seen a wild boar. So whenever something, that oh shit moment, or there's a problem, or there's a challenge, or you just kind of go, right, this is a wild boar. How do I deal with it calmly? I accept the fact that this is in front of me, and I just deal with it calmly and move on. So I'll never forget that wild boar moment. I think is really critical in business and even to day-to-day life. When something just doesn't go right, it's just a wild boar moment, and I've just got to move on. And the other one for me, and I think this is really true within sport, is what you do next that matters. When I was coaching and playing, things go wrong and things happen, but you can't deal with that now. It's what you do next that absolutely matters. And I think that's critical for business. You see in the game, somebody fumbles a pass, they could lose their head or they could get that ball back and end up scoring, so things happen for a reason within the game, within business. So yeah, the wild ball and, what you do next that matters is yeah, two real things I remember pretty well from playing sport.
Yeah, it's that famous quote from Rocky, isn't it? Do you mean it's not how many times you get knocked down, it's kind of getting back up again. That's the important thing. We all get knocked down, we all get setbacks, we're all gonna lose at some point or kind of make a mistake. And you can either bury your head in the sand or you can fall apart or you can own it, you can learn from it, and then you can move forward as a better version of yourself having made that mistake.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
I think a safe space to fail is something that sport does quite well as well. It's let's try this, let's try that, let's see if we can improve here. Let's try different tactics, let's try different maneuvers, let's try different processes and see what works. And again, with those marginal gains, where can we find those improvements? But with business, sometimes it's kind of like this is the way it's done. This is the way we're going to do it. We don't want to change things through fear of messing something up and kind of breaking it. But actually, you might be missing an opportunity by not being brave enough or creating a safe space to try something new and giving people the opportunity to test themselves and fail.
Yeah. And to add to that diverse thinking, that, having diversity, at exec level around the boardroom or just contributing towards the direction of an organization is critical. The world we live in right now is very complex, it's changing rapidly. And, successful businesses move with that change, and adding that diverse thinking in is really, really critical. And you look at the success of, we can talk about the All Blacks time and time again. When they hit the top of the mountain, when they hit their pinnacle, it's like, what do we now do? How do we change? What do we do differently to keep moving forward? And you're not always going to have success all the time. Somebody has to lose. That's the nature of sport. That's the nature of business. But again, it's what you do next that matters.
Absolutely. And if you've got a group of people that have all come from the same background, have the same knowledge and the same skills, you're going to suffer from collective blindness then, haven't you? It's like having a football team with 11 centre midfielders. They might be the best centre midfielders in the world, but they're not a goalkeeper. They're not a left back. They're not a striker. You've got that collective blindness.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Fantastic. So you've been heavily involved in football and hockey, kind of on and off the field. So how do the playing roles and the business roles differ within sport? But the mindset, is it a totally different mindset, or is there a lot of crossover? Understanding the playing side helps the business side, or is it best to keep them separate?
So I think literally from me being a hockey player to then be kind of being chief exec of hockey, it was it's, I think when you kind of sat on this side of the fence, you're saying, oh, I would do this, and why aren't they doing this, and why? And then when you kind of go and sit the other side of the fence, you realize the bigger picture. So it's a very different space, and when you're a member or a player or a coach, you see things through your lens. And then when you become a chief exec of an organization, you have to see the bigger picture. There's so many more moving parts to being the leader of an organization, to being a member or a small part in an organization. So, that was really, really eye-opening for me, and really, right, now I understand why these things have been happening. But respectfully, and I always try to do this, was even though I had to see the bigger picture and I had to make tough decisions, and that would impact somebody and it wouldn't impact somebody else. I was always really respectful of the fact that people do only see it through their lens, and that's okay. And I can hear what they want to say, and I can listen, and I can show empathy. But I have to sometimes make a decision that doesn't really align to their thinking or their views. And it's difficult. It's really hard, particularly for me with hockey being my sport. I was relentlessly making heart and head decisions, and I found that quite consuming. I was very accessible to people. I, would know people from old, and I'd coached them or played with them, and I was accessible to them via Facebook or WhatsApp on my personal number. So, yeah, there is a very different feeling to kind of being within that playing or coaching space to then, becoming the leader of the organization.
I suppose that goes for all organizations, doesn't it? Like if you work in the business as a field sales representative and you see it through that particular lens and you wonder why decisions are being made. And then when you move to be the CEO of a business, you realize that those decisions are not simple, are not straightforward. There's a lot of thinking that goes on behind there, and there is the bigger picture. And so I suppose there's a lot of crossover there between sport and other businesses as well, isn't there?
Yeah, and communication is critical, and I didn't always get it right. I don't think people get everything right, and we're always learning and growing. But I think it's understanding what, when you make a change or you're giving feedback, there's a real critical point here in terms of communication. It's going, look, this is how it impacts me. This is how it impacts me. How do we move forward? Where does the, not necessarily the compromise, but where do we cooperate here to end up in the right space for the business? So I think, understanding the bigger picture and having that, impactful communication, and knowing that somebody is going to be impacted and not in a way that doesn't suit them, is really important.
Riverside Sports Bar with Welsh sports fans is Newport's premier sports bar and has been voted best sports bar at the Welsh Hospitality Awards. With a range of huge TVs, an incredible food menu with burgers, dirty fries and much more, including vegan options, it is the place to watch sport. Visit www.riversidesportsbarnewport.com to find out more.
So in 2023, you left your role as CEO of Hockey Wales after nearly 6 years to take a career break. And then you set up KIBO. So tell us about the process and the decision to setting up your own business. Kind of what sort of space was you in? What was the thinking, and what did you want to do?
Yeah, so I've obviously alluded around kind of that consumption and, being so involved in hockey. And, I absolutely loved being a chief exec. But from a personal perspective, so my wife was on maternity leave. During COVID, I had my little boy and I lost my dad. So 8 weeks after my little boy was born, my dad passed away. And I had this epiphany moment. I was chief exec. I was a mum for the first time, and we were in COVID. I just finished my master's. There was so much going on for me. And I kind of had this moment saying, my life is now fundamentally different. I now have this amazing little person that we've been on a very long IVF journey, and I've lost my dad. What is the world? What am I doing? What does the world look like for us? And a couple of years later, then we had our little girl, and then it was in that moment we decided to go traveling. So we just said, let's have some quality time together. So we bought a motorhome and kind of hit the road for 90 days and drove to Croatia. So our little boy was 2 years and 9 months, and our little girl was 9 months old. So yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
That was a hell of a road trip then with small children, I'd imagine.
It wasn't as romantic as we thought, but it was incredible. We had the most amazing time. And, during that time when we were sort of just really present, and, I was probably the most relaxed I'd been a part of it in terms of being able to make decisions about my career. There were obviously some really stressful moments being on the road. But I just sort of looked at the world through the eyes of my children and thought, how simply they view it, and, how complex we kind of make things. And people sort of sent me some chief exec roles, and I just thought, I'm not sure I want to go back into that space right now. And the reason why I didn't want to do that was because I wasn't overly healthy whilst I was a chief exec, and I neglected kind of my well-being. And a lot of people do that within that chief exec space or that executive space, and it's quite lonely, and they don't look after their mental health very well, or their wellness, or their self-care. So I just set up, KIBO just came to mind, and it's the name of our two children together. It's just Ki and Bo with the children, and it means hope in Japanese. So all the kind of stars were aligning whilst we were sat in this motorhome, I think probably in Croatia or Italy somewhere. And KIBO was formed. We did the due diligence to make sure that KIBO was a legitimate name and it wasn't anything inappropriate, and it was hope. So initially it was designed to, like I said, support executives, support people with tackling lonely leadership, burnout, and looking after themselves. And it's definitely now evolved more into a mindset and a wellness business, where I use the 4 principles: eat, sleep, breathe, connect, and say to people, if you're an entrepreneur and you're very much invested in your purpose, is that purpose wrapped around self-care? So I'm doing some work with entrepreneurs who are founders who are in the first kind of 2 to 3 years of their business to say, right, don't forget your self-care. Let's get together as a group, and I will make you accountable for looking after yourself. I also go into businesses and talk to them about those four concepts: eat, sleep, breathe, connect, and saying you can do as many leadership courses as you want. You can do many courses on diversity and, training on GDPR. But if you're not looking after yourself, you're never going to be able to perform at optimal levels. You're not going to have that cognitive function. You're not going to make sound decisions. You won't make decisions appropriately in terms of whether you should stay in an organization, leave, get promoted. You might not be able to challenge culture because you're tired, you're not eating. Your productivity might decrease in the afternoon because you've had a very starchy white breaded sandwich or a sausage roll or something for lunch. So the business has kind of evolved into very much a mindset and wellness business, where I just remind people that they're a person behind the job title, behind the job description, and that they have to look after themselves for them to then perform at optimal levels within the business space.
Yeah, and I think there's something really interesting and important that you kind of said there, is like you unplugged yourself from that business world where you're on the hamster wheel 24/7. Your brain doesn't switch off. You're always thinking, gotta do this tomorrow, gotta do this next week, hope this goes well. You unplugged yourself from that, kind of took some time away, and that frees the brain up to just think a little differently. Like, who am I? What do I want to do? What does the world look like? What do I want to give my children? You get that little bit of breathing space to your brain where you can see the world slightly differently. Your lens changes a little bit, to use kind of the same sort of wording that you've used. And then you can make better decisions. And if you're rested and you've slept and all the rest of it, you definitely make better decisions as well. And I think as a CEO or as a business leader, as an entrepreneur, you are on that hamster wheel kind of 24/7, because the staff might kind of switch off at 5:30, go home.
Yeah.
Your brain doesn't do. You kind of sit at home thinking, what am I going to do tomorrow? Did that go well today? I need to speak to that person about this. and it can be very, very difficult to switch off.
Yeah.
How did you find the change from being the CEO of a business to then running your own business? Because that's a whole other world as well. You're the CEO of Hockey Wales. It's got its structure, it's got its board, it's got its staff, it's got its processes. And then you start your own business. It's kind of like, hey, it's a blank slate, but at the same time, there's kind of no roadmap. You've got to figure this stuff out for yourself.
It's a really great question, because I think what I underestimated was actually how lonely it is. So I was in this lonely space as a chief exec, looking around at my team, looking around at the board, not really knowing who to turn to, because you can't always turn to certain people. And then I kind of came into this, entrepreneurial space going, oh, it's equally lonely. It's just me. I'm looking at my whiteboard for inspiration, and, I've got this idea and no one is there to bounce it off. So, I think it is a very lonely space. And I think that's the important point for me around bringing people together. So creating that community, and there's some amazing community groups across Wales, and to be part of the FinTech Wales setup is great. I love being with those guys, and our conversation today is because of that community. So I think it's really exciting. I've got freedom. I've got the choice. I can make choices. What I love most about it is the business is me. I'm more authentic than I've ever been, because it's my company, it's the children's names, which makes me really accountable. So I feel like it is a very different space, and I just feel a lot lighter, even though I'm trying to grow a business and make it a success. But I'm doing it on my terms. I've got the freedom to go and take the kids to school and pick them up. And after this call, I could go for a run if I wanted to. I don't need to wait until the end of the day. The freedom to manage my diary is really, really, really important to me. And I think what it's also done, because of the nature of the business, the Eat, Sleep, Breathe, Connect concept, it's really made me accountable for myself within that space. So I am the business. I live and breathe Eat, Sleep, Breathe, Connect. The business is KIBO. It's who I am. It's everything about me. It's the children's name. So, it's really privileged. I feel really privileged to be, in this situation, to be able to be a business owner and to do my own thing.
Yeah, you've got to be living those principles, haven't you? You can't go into a business having not slept and being stressed and not looking after yourself and then telling them they should look after themselves. You have to be that kind of living kind of version of your brand and your ethics, I suppose, haven't you? There's 100%. Pressure comes with that.
Yeah, there is, but I enjoy it. It's not difficult. I don't find it, I actually, like, I'm out running and I want to stop my run because I want to share something with my community and say, I'm doing a run now and I'm not putting pressure on myself to beat my last time. I run within a range, and have you considered doing that? And then I'm running thinking, I want to stop and do a video. So a lot of my videos, I got my baseball cap and I'm sweating. But I really just want, one of the most important things to me is people live happy and healthy lives. I want people to succeed. I want people to achieve their purpose. And I really want to find a way to support, the community that want to be supported by me, that, you can be anything you want to be. And if you adopt these 4 principles, I promise you, your life will be, it will be easier and be happier and healthier.
Fantastic. And so what are the next steps for KIBO then? You've got a new program coming up, and you're looking for people to come and join that program?
Yeah, so there's a couple of kind of group coaching programs and some one-to-one coaching I do, and I obviously go into businesses to talk about Eat, Sleep, Breathe, Connect, and I do a lot with authenticity and leadership and high performance. But I'm really excited about this new program for entrepreneurs, and having kind of connected with people now in this space and gone to a lot of events, I see a lot of tired people, really excited people, but a little bit tired and lonely and on their own. So it's called Ikigai, and Ikigai is around your purpose. And I think a lot of people, when they sense check their vision for their business, they use the Ikigai model. So I've kind of brought that to life, but wrapped it in Eat, Sleep, Breathe, Connect, and the wellness space that we're offering. So it's an 8-week program. We get together, we'll do some well-being exercises, whether that's going for a walk, you might do a sea dip, you might just connect and just have a coffee. But what the group also does then is they make each other accountable. So day, week, what are you doing around this Eat, Sleep, Breathe, Connect concept? It might be a 9 o'clock text message saying, right, get ready to put your phones down. You're going to bed at 10, an hour before bed. You should be starting to think about winding down. Or it might be a message on a Sunday night saying, have you prepped your food for the week? And we could like send each other photos of our food prep, really make people accountable, but make it fun and make it really, really easy to achieve. Just small wins, 1%ers.
That's it. And like you said, there's any number of kind of programs out there and books about how to build a better business, or how to find your purpose, or how to do this, that, and the other. And nowhere in any of that does it say, make sure you're looking after yourself, because what's the point building a business if you're grinding yourself, do you know what I mean, down to the nub, and kind of you're not enjoying it, and you're not happy, and you're not sleeping, and you're not eating, and you're suffering in order to try and build something. You've got to look after yourself, and then if you're the best, healthiest version of yourself, you can give a bit more energy to your business, and you can kind of drive that on. And that support mechanism and those other people are in a similar situation, I think, is important as well. Because when you're a business kind of leader, or you're an entrepreneur, like you said earlier, there's certain conversations you don't want to have with your team, or you don't want to have with your partner. So maybe having a group of people outside of your initial bubble where you can go and have an open and honest and frank conversation about where you're at, how you're feeling, and the challenges you're facing, and that not impacting your business, or not worrying your partner, or your kind of business colleagues or your staff. I think that could be really important for entrepreneurs, because it could be a difficult world at the moment, and being kind to yourself and having that support mechanism, I think, is really important.
And that's exactly it. And it's non-judgmental. That's the most critical thing here is, it's not competitive, it's non-judgmental. I'm literally here to sit in the mud with you. And, one of the things that I want people to be mindful of, either you pause now or you're forced to stop later. And we don't want to get to that stage where you've got chronic fatigue 5 years down the line because you haven't given yourself permission to pause now.
Yeah, and I used to be terrible for it. I used to work 6.5 days a week, and then I'd take off like half a day on a Saturday to watch Cardiff City, and then they'd be awful. And I think that was my half a day off. And then went to go and watch kind of Neil Warnock's Cardiff lump the ball and have 27% possession against lesser teams. And then that was my entire week then. But it's not good for you, is it? It's not healthy. It's not good for your business. There's this kind of pride in business that, I work 7 days a week, I work 14 hours a day, I work hard, but it's not about working harder all the time. It's about working smarter as well, isn't it?
100%. Yeah, and the Ikigai program, the wellness program, is exactly that. So if anybody wants to join the program, they can just contact me on LinkedIn. There's a form you can fill out. We start on, I think it's the 15th of July, it's a Monday. 15th of July is the first one, meet in person, and then we can grow from there. So whilst it's an 8-week program and there's a framework in mind, it's very much determined by the group and what we want to do. So people can just get in touch.
Fantastic, yeah, and I'm super interested as well. I kind of, when we spoke the other day, I thought this is something that's missing, and something that I think I would benefit from as a kind of entrepreneur and business leader. And I think it's something that a lot of business leaders kind of miss out, and so hopefully they get some value from it. And I think going back to what we spoke about at the beginning, having that kind of self-reflection a little bit. Do you mean kind of, what am I doing? How am I doing it? Is this benefiting me? Kind of, am I healthy at the moment? And having that support mechanism around each kind of member, I think could be a really, really powerful tool.
Hopefully.
Absolutely. So Ria, thank you very much for your time today. It was absolutely brilliant to speak to you. And thank you to those at home for watching or listening. Hopefully you found this really interesting. And I would urge you to go and find Ria on social media, on LinkedIn, and find out a little more. There's some very interesting work being done in this space. So Ria, thank you very much. And I'll speak to you very soon.
Thank you for having me.
Don't forget to like and share this episode, and subscribe to the channel for more content.